Oh my God, it's November. Happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans. Come on, vets.
Clink, 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 clink.
As you see, there's a few of the grown-ass women that are veterans. Shout out to those folks. Shout out to us. Shout out to our parents who have served. Shout out to our elders. Shout out to those who are serving right now. We thank you for your service as well. So here we are, live in person again, episode 2 of season 2 of Grown As Women. And y'all, you know this is our first time in a season dropping month to month to month. We are dropping 12 episodes this year, right? Like, so excited about what we are doing, how we're adding in the in-person piece, how we're adding in the more episodes, you know, more of our personality and all that kind of stuff. Last month, remember, I forgot to do the whole introduction, so we did it at the end, and y'all got all deep on a sister. I am this, and I am of God, and y'all started saying all the things, and I was like, I just wanted your name.
I think that was you saying you were of God.
It was me that said I'm of God.
That.
I am of God.
I am of God too.
Let's do a quick round just for our newbies to Grown As Women, the folks that are just starting to listen in. Tell us what your name is. Don't go deeper. I mean, unless you like it deep, baby.
Hey.
Come on, let's start with you, Jay.
Hello, everyone. I am Jonai Carr. They call me Jay.
Yes.
Hey, y'all.
Hi, I'm Deana Kennedy, also known as Captain Kennedy. Ooh,
Hey. We like it.
Yes, I am Nikki Wood, not Nicole, not Woods, no S, Nikki Wood, just that way. Thank you.
I am almost Dr. Ayana Malone.
Yeah.
Oh, that was it. Almost Dr. Ayana Malone. Yes, that's it.
You said the name
That's
don't
it.
matter. They just call me Doctor.
Almost Dr.
That's it.
Ayana Malone. That's it. That's all.
I am Dr. Plummer. My homegirls call me LaNail. Well,
Let's keep it there.
I'm going to keep it right there. Keep it clean. Keep it clean. All right. So I think today we said, like, in honor of Veterans Day and understanding, like, power and power dynamics and systems and structures, we wanted to talk about what power looks like.
Yeah.
And I think that in October, we had a particular experience where there was a young man who had an injury on the field, the football field. So catch us up, Nick.
I'll take that one. So And just something I think it's a great example of, you know, who has the power, who gets to make decisions about you or for you and your well-being. So just kind of a synopsis, because I am not an NFL correspondent, and they're not a sponsor.
They're not a sponsor.
Just a synopsis.
Yet.
Sunday game, you know, a player, he had a head and neck kind of injury. He got himself up, not even 2-3 seconds later, does a little shimmy, wobble, and falls to the ground. And that was not on purpose. His body said, no, sir. He was able to get up again, walked off the field, but continued on in the game. He went back and continued in the game. That was a Sunday. Then Thursday, he's back in the game, right? Remember, he just had this injury that caused some reaction in his brain to not let him stand. But he's back in the game Thursday and suffers another injury. Same thing, very similar. The head snap, the neck trauma, all of it. And they had to wheel him off the field, so he couldn't walk off the field. So then you start asking, was it the physicians? Was it the player? Was it the coach? Was it the owner? You know, who had the power to come and say to this individual, to the player, no? You know, even if the player was saying yes. So there's a lot of factors unknown at the time, you know, and a lot has probably transpired since then. But at the time, you know, what's going on? Who gets to say no? Who should have said after the Sunday game, no, you need time. There's a brain injury. You know, who's responsible? So, you know, this is something he'll have to live with if there's any type of permanent damage. So should it be his power? You know, what if he said yes, but if they say no, do the physicians get the power? Who has it? So it's just an example. And just to add on a different element, similar in the NBA, another player had an injury, wanted to go back in the game, and their father came back and said, absolutely not, because you are going to suffer more damage. And in that case, his father made the decision and had the power.
Well, his father had the power, but in the system, his father didn't have any power, right? Because when
the
you look
player
at
could
power,
say no.
right?
Yeah.
So it was that
Influence.
there was a
The
system
power
of
and
influence, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess what I hear you saying, Nick, is in these systems that we operate in, who has the power, but more aligned with that decision-making power? Who makes the final decisions, right? And what does that look like? And I think when we think about it in terms of grown-ass women, we also have to consider like, we are double marginalized, right? We're Black, we're women, and some of us are also in the LGBTQ community, which puts an added layer of marginalization and maybe even oppression on there. So in the systems that we are operating in, how do Black women make decisions around power when other people are telling us that we have none?
Right.
If systems are telling us we are powerless, how do we empower ourselves and make that to be fact? So more than feeling, more than spirit, how do we make fact that we have power?
Yeah, absolutely.
So where do we start with that? How do you guys incorporate power in your lives? And transparently, when are the times when you don't? And not because you are. When are the times you don't because you've been socialized to not have power?
Well,
Nope.
I'll start because
Come on,
LaNail, we were in a book club for many, many years, and we read a book called The 48 Laws of Power. And that book has had a lasting, I hear you, D, lasting effect on me in understanding how to navigate power and navigate the games we have to play to empower ourselves.
Yeah.
And even when you have to step back and say, you know what, I am not the person here with the ultimate power. You have to have that humility because you want to move forward. And I think as a Black woman, that is difficult so much of the time, especially when you know yourself, you know the situation, maybe you know you're right, but you don't have the power.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you want to leapfrog over to the next part of your goal, you do have to hold yourself back.
But that's power too, right?
But that's
to
the
play the
power
game.
to choose.
Yeah.
That is the power to choose that, you know what, I'm gonna let you have it. Go ahead and win this battle because I will ultimately win the war.
Because I got
That's
next.
what
Because
The art of war by Sun Tzu.
Uh-huh.
Read that as well. But I mean, I think it's a very delicate balance. But where Black women often fall or falter is we run ourselves, and I think of the player you're saying, like we hurt ourselves. You know, we snap our own necks. You know, to be able to keep going forward. And it's like, when do we just stop? And say, you know what, this is no longer what I want. It's really a delicate balance. But starting with understanding the rules of power, you'll never be able to play the game if you don't know the rules.
Yeah, because in that situation, Youngin snapped his neck and went back into the game, and he won that particular battle because he kept playing, right? But now we don't know what the long-term effects are going to be, right? Like,
of the war,
can he play
of the war?
Can he play a year from now? Can he play 2 years from now? Can he played that game and he got whatever he needed for that game, the money that he needed or the recognition that he needed? Because there's an economic piece to power too, right? Especially in our capitalistic society. So there's that element, but sometimes you don't know how to do that power play, which means you need to step back, right?
And to that point, you must have vision. And on this Veterans Day, you got to have field vision to know everything that's going to happen. And there's an element of conservation of resources. If you know that you don't have the resources to keep playing today, but you need to keep playing tomorrow, you need to sit down. You need to be able to examine all of that, see all the players on the field, all the next moves, so that you can be where you need to be to attain that power.
And maybe that's what he did, though. Maybe it was his choice to get to go back in, because I don't think the owners and whomever with the NFL want to see him hurt in the end, because that messes with their money, messes with everybody's with the whole situation. So maybe he made a decision and said, I'm okay, I'm gonna go back in, because it still keeps him in the talk. So even if I'm in today, you saw what happened to me, and you saw how pushed through it and I came back. And so even if I'm not there next time, you will remember me and what I did and how I acted and the perseverance. Yes. So that could have been
That's true.
A play that could have caused him his life.
Yeah.
But, you know, generally we know what's going on with us. And if he felt like he could do it and that was the most, that was his move, that was his chess move, we would never forget that, right?
Yeah.
When did we learn power? Like think back of we talk about last month y'all tried to play me with my age, but we talk about being women of a certain age, which ideally not always means that we are of a certain wisdom stance also, right? Like we've experienced a certain bit in life so we can give wisdom. When did we learn our power, and what would you say to a young woman that you're mentoring now?
I think sometimes
a young Black woman that you're mentoring now.
I think honestly, we probably learned, well, I guess I'll speak for myself. And I don't necessarily have an example, but I think sometimes power and manipulation might be synonymous sometimes. And so I think as young kids, we start manipulating.
Infancy.
Yes. We start manipulating and we turn
hold on. How are we
turn it
defining
into power.
manipulation? How do we define manipulation?
Just saying, you know, use what you got to get what you want, kind of whatever that means. Not necessarily.
To my overworked mother to get a piece of candy because I know she don't have the energy to tell me to stop.
And then you see what works, and then you play on that. And then, you know, of course, as you get older and whatever, hopefully you learn.
So then it begs the difference. So then it begs the difference between manipulation and natural cause and effect, right? So if a baby cries and they know that when they cry, they're going to get the attention of their parent, that's natural, right? So when does manipulation step in?
I mean, I think that's natural, but I also think it becomes manipulation if you learn that it works.
So it's the intent.
The moment you know it works.
If the intent is missing, is it manipulation?
I don't know if the moment it works, we know that that's manipulation because that just seems like natural cause and effect.
But I think then you start doing it intentionally.
So right, I was going to say the intent.
When you know that if you do something, there are two different particular outcomes and you want a specific outcome. So yes, I think it goes back to intention. I think I'm careful to not call normal cause and effect manipulation because manipulation means I think you are going to do this and I'm going to do something different so you can do this.
Because you can be,
and that's not normal cause and effect because normal cause and effect would allow you to do whatever you were about to do. But when I want to shift what you are about to do for my benefit, then it's manipulation.
But isn't that a part of playing the game, like we said?
Yes, but it's not natural. But manipulation isn't natural. So we can't say that human beings are naturally manipulative. I don't know if that's natural.
But talk about it in the friend group.
I think it's learned.
From the friend perspective, think of it like this, right? Where I wouldn't call it manipulation, but someone might have felt manipulated. So prime example, if there's someone not in the soulmate from October circle of the friends, right? But we're having issues. And then if I vent to you all, right? And you're not as close to this person, it starts to plant seeds, right? And so I could not intentionally be trying to plant a seed so that you all think negatively, but it could come back around. We're like, well, wait, I feel like I was slightly manipulated into this opinion. So, but because I've had experiences where people...
That sounds like influence to me.
Right. So, So maybe they miscategorized what that was.
I think manipulation, as you said, becomes when I can see the whole field, when I can anticipate the decision
it's
that
strategic.
you're about to make.
So that's power, but that's also
to
power.
do something differently. And so I do things to get you to turn your head, if that's influence, if that's intentionally placing a barrier, so that you will go in the path that I need you to go for my plan to be successful.
Yeah.
Right. Which means, manipulation is learned and it's strategic. And it means that the person who manipulated had a broader view of what was going on around
So
them.
bring it back to the example, right?
Which is where power sets in, because
Mm-hmm.
ideally a person of power can see the whole field, like you said earlier. They understand all these different outcomes, and they choose which outcome they want and set a strategy for what they want. Right. Some people can do that extremely quickly.
Perfect example. January 6th. Was
Child.
that manipulation? The Capitol, no, I mean, but that's a perfect example of using
what we said we doing Veterans Day. You want to bring that in?
We're talking about power. You can't talk
and I'm
about
still in.
We can't do it today. We can't do it today.
I'm still owned by the government currently.
We can't do that one today, Nick.
As we all are in some form.
And in some form, I was going to say, in some form, aren't we all? And I think what is interesting is I hear you talk about manipulation versus power versus influence. It's semantics. And manipulation has a negative connotation. And I think we have to, and I get that it has a negative connotation, but manipulation, don't we all want to get what we want to get? And we learn it.
No, I don't think so.
You want to be a successful business person. So you have to map out the field, as Dee says, and you have to move us, and us being in Onyx, into the spaces you want us to go.
Is that leading?
To become. But to me, it's still...
It's all the same. You're saying
it's
the non-negative side of it.
It's the non-negative side. Like manipulation just...
Let's just call it the exercising of power.
The exercising
of power. That makes you feel better in your spirit.
That's leadership.
That's leadership.
I am the director of training and education.
The way that I wanted to fire that girl the other day, no, I don't think so.
But did you fire her?
But you're in your position to make those types of...
I didn't want to, but because I went and I prayed about that joint, and that will was not my will. I was really for real.
But you exercised that will because you were like,
she nothing. I was obedient to the Lord.
Baby ninja down.
Exactly.
Baby ninja down. Right.
And I think that's where we as women fail. We've got to embrace our power. So I'm a director in 2 different organizations, and I'm like, I want my team to go that way. Do you not think I'm going to do everything possible to get my team to go in that direction?
You're also a Scorpio.
But that's leadership.
But you know
that's
what?
Leadership. That is there's a vision, whether it's your vision or it's your leadership's vision, right? The vision is, as a leader, you have the power to make sure your team has that. Yes. Because when I see that my team is, if I know what the vision is and my team is lacking the skill set to do it, I either need to acquire more individuals to do that or have to guide them strategically into the places they need to be to get that knowledge, get that experience, and carry out the vision or mission. So that's leadership. So to your point, manipulation has a negative connotation with it. It just does. It just makes you feel bad. It doesn't. But when you think about manipulation, the difference between that and being strategically successful is the negative intent behind it. The self-serving purpose. Where me being strategic and leading to the team is not
help
being
everybody.
selfish.
Trying to get us all somewhere.
Everybody will win.
But it goes back to the point you made. When you had that decision about your team, you went and prayed. It's about where your leader takes their notes from. Right. Are you a leader that's going to go pray and seek outside information? Are you a leader that's going to sit and stew in your feelings and make, what makes temporary decisions based on how you feel? Right. When you are committing to a thing, to a family, to a organization, you got to know where your leader's heart and intentions are committed to. Because you are also committed to wherever they're seeking their guidance.
Yeah.
I can feel the fire.
Sidebar, real quick. Real funny. Yesterday, I was talking to a friend, and she is going through a battle with cancer, and she said,
"You talked to your friend."
Yes, she said. My friend somebody tried to pull out some oil or something to put it on me, and I was like, does God fuck with you?
Soundbite.
Does God fuck with you? Like true statement.
Hollered.
Right?
Yes.
And I promised her, I said, I'm going to use that.
Yes.
That.
Oh my God,
That's what you gotta know.
That is what you
That's
gotta
all
know.
the
T-shirts
podcast.
that used to say spiritual
God
gangster. I think you bought
Does
one
God
for
fuck
my
with you? I got one of them
birthday. Yes. Does God fuck with you? Yes.
That's a soundbite right there.
Oh,
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yes.
That's a whole nother podcast we can do on that one.
And when we talk
Yeah.
about God in that particular way, it's interesting because I think in our society as women, we don't always step into our power because our traditional religious books
It's to be submissive, yeah.
say that women came second, right? Like that's not necessarily what God intended, but we are a response to what somebody else needed.
Right.
And so we've been socialized to believe that we are always a response to what somebody else needs. Like we never get to just be ourselves and in our own purpose and what we want. We always have to
We are the
submit.
help.
We are always the help. And
always
it's the biblical, that particular religious book, the Bible, makes it seem like we are always the help, right? And so therefore we always depress our power because the help, my help in my life, they don't have my house cleaner, she doesn't have the power to say where something goes in my life, right? She just takes care of what is presently there. And when you are constantly put into the position of helping, you're never in the position where you're told you can have power. And that goes for Black people in this country. When we think that our history started in slavery and it started way before that, and we were powerful before that. And it goes as women when we're told that we are incapacitated at different times of pregnancy, when we're on our cycles, all these other situations. And so we're constantly being told, you're nothing but a helpmate. And so when you are socialized as that from a little kid, you don't think you have power.
But some people find...
And then when you do, you're told that you're masculine, you're dominant.
Yeah.
I mean,
but there
is
are
it starting to sound personal for us, sis?
Or we give it away.
Aggressive.
Or we give it away because we're told we're aggressive. Exactly.
But there's another side to this, though.
Subservient.
There is another side, though, because some people do find power in being helpful. Some people don't want to be in that leadership role or leadership position. There is another side to it, but that's a choice.
They have always found that to be the case for them. Do men find themselves powerful as helpful?
Absolutely
you don't
not.
find men saying, I feel so
I don't date
powerful when
those.
I'm helpful.
I see what you're saying, though, Nikki. I see what you're saying because I can manipulate that into
be strategic Okay,
into you can't do this without me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so,
there is power in
you are
that.
a person that likes to flourish in a helping role, but you are very aware of that power, right? But to the point that you were making, Nick, I don't know if everybody who, and this goes back to something that I hope we get to talk about in this season around identity development. I don't know if everybody who calls themselves a helper and who find power in that if that would be their natural purpose had they not been heavily influenced by societal pressure.
I think it's a struggle. It's a struggle. So no different. I have power at work, right? So if I'm in a normal, let's say biblical relationship, right? And I have power at work, I'm making decisions at work, I'm calling the shots at work, but then in my personal, intimate relationship, it's more of a supportive, submissive role. I'm gonna say my word.
Go ahead.
There's balance, right? There's balance. But to your point, I was raised to be a leader, and I think on previous podcasts I talked about this. I was raised to be in charge. I'm walking across the stage, any accomplishment, any degree, I'm like, who's number one? And my father, that is what a man instilled in me, right? And then my mother was a boss. So none of that translates into a normal hetero biblical submissive relationship. That was something that I had to try to learn and rebelled against when I thought that's, what society said I had to do. And I all the way rebelled against it. And, my first marriage, my second marriage tried to.
We knew that was coming too.
Yeah. Thank you. Tried to be that. You're welcome. Tried to be that in my second marriage. And Could not, because that's when I realized if I'm going to be supportive, I have to want to be. But I also have to be with someone that recognizes, and this is where the shift has to come in society, the shift of understanding. There are going to be times where I will take the lead in this relationship because I am better equipped. I am more knowledgeable. I am better equipped. I am the better person. There's going to be times where you need to take the lead.
Which means that for you, power was also based off of awareness and understanding.
Yes.
Like in order to step into my power, I have to understand that this is where my strong suit is.
Yeah.
Where I think that we run into cases where many people that are in power just want to continue the power.
Yeah.
So they're horrible or they're
I know
mediocre
one of those.
and things like that. And they just, they're in power positions, not because they've earned it, right? Like let's be transparent. We live in a society where it's largely ruled by white men who are mediocre at best. And subsequently, the system allows them to continue to be in power, not because they have the vision to actually do the work.
The system is also that they empower each other.
Yes.
And so I feel like we are just getting on board with that. So, they always going to help each other out. Like somebody becomes the CEO or the chief, whatever, and knows nothing about nothing.
Right.
But we put you in this position because I have the power to do it.
Right.
And staff up people that know something about everything, and then they can inform you and make decisions.
Correct.
So.
Yeah.
And I want to say something about what Nikki said. Like, there's also power in choosing where you want to wield or hold your power.
Come on, Will.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Like,
tenacious
really
Will.
is.
You're getting a lot of that.
Right. Like, and it's a wind up, ain't it? Like, you don't just will, you just wind it up.
ELA teacher.
Come on.
Vocabulary. But there's this certain truth to, I don't need to be at the top to wield my power.
Yes.
Right.
Right. Like, so I can work in an organization where I work and I have an executive director and she's the ultimate, but it's like that idea you hear women say, like, the neck is what turns the head.
Yes.
I think a lot of times I'm in that role. I don't want to be the executive
You
director.
like necks?
Yeah, I like neck. I got good. Now I sound like Nikki. No, you all are derailing my power. You're derailing
Breathe in my
power.
air. Breathe
Take it
in my
back,
air.
Yanni. Take it back.
Take it back. But
Take it all the way back. Take it back again.
But the truth is, like, I don't want to be the executive director. She deals with bullshit I would never want to deal with.
Yeah.
I want to be right under her.
Yeah.
Being like, so, Marsha, this is what we need to do. Why don't you put that person there? And I'm like playing
But
chess.
that's power.
Yeah.
But that's
Strategic.
power. But it
You're being
also goes
strategic.
back to this idea of being in this submissive biblical relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Are you really submissive? Or are you wielding your power in a different
But there's a
Well,
negative
it's
side of
perspective
it.
too.
That's what the choice is.
A part of power is being able, because I am like you, Yanni. I am an idea fairy. They literally say, Deana, go sprinkle some fairy dust on this project at work. I am the good idea fairy. You give me a mission, I can make it happen. But I don't want the risk associated
Oh, and I'm
with
taking the
being
risk.
the
I want the
lead
risk.
person
I want
in
the
power in all environments.
Right.
In some environments, my own business, yes, I'll take it. But when it is coming to these corporate and governmental environments, I don't want the risk. I don't want the attention drawn to my outside life. Not that I do anything crazy, but I don't want that in those environments. So I make a decision to be number two.
Make a decision, and there's that power in choice,
Correct.
which is why I truly think
I like that.
why they
Choice.
they
Sound
took
bite.
away Roe v. Wade, and this is not what this podcast is about, because I think people ultimately know there's a power in a choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, and you can choose to do this, you can choose to do that, which means I have my own autonomy.
Yes.
And I think that's what people fear.
Yes.
That's what
There's power in
the
choice, yeah.
patriarchy feels. That's what white supremacy hegemony feels. Is like,
That's what
well,
men
I have
feel.
a choice. Yeah, like I
don't
have a
want people
choice
that have a choice.
of doing this or doing that, and you can't control that choice.
And sometimes that's what parents feel too, right? Which is why they don't necessarily give their children a lot of choice. And then the moment a child has choice, they go out there and they wild the hell out, right? Like, which is why So maybe that power is in that choice and in the autonomy. And I wonder if we had been introduced to choice a little bit earlier in our lives, if that is where we would have started to lean in on other spiritual elements, right? Like if we started to lean in on guidance. We find that teenagers rebel against their parents at particular moments because they don't want to do what somebody told them to do.
Yeah.
But if you introduce early to them that they have choice, then they will learn also early on where to get advice, where to get guidance, right? And you wouldn't rebel against what is good for you if you had the choice earlier on in life.
And I think choice and understanding, because there were times where, you know, you may have had choices or options or whatever you want to call it, but you didn't understand. Or it might have been because I said so, or those kinds of things where, you know, back in the day, your parents said what they said and you either got smacked down or you're not going or you're not, but you know, today is a little bit different. You know, I guess we're all learning from our traumas and that kind of thing. And that, you know, you need to be spoken to a certain way, or, you know, you have to tailor to your audience, to this child or that child. You know, you can't treat everybody the same.
Right.
And so I think understanding is also a part of that too.
But even the way you kind of describe that in terms of like parents and Black parents and things like that, you know, what we know to be history that's passed down from Black people to Black people, not history that has been politicized and researched and governed for like propaganda, but true history about within Blackness, is that a lot of those parents didn't give their children choice and power because the slave master didn't give choice and power. Right. And so it was better for me to take care and discipline my child and give them no choice than for the slave master to not give them choice. So even the way that we parent and interact with each other in positions of power as Black people is oftentimes built on white supremacy. Yeah. And when we move away from that white supremacy, which is where I think many Black parents, empowered Black parents are moving now, then we feel more comfortable with choice and it's not connected to ego and it's not connected to safety. It's connected to your own purpose and autonomy and spirit, like what you are supposed to be on this earth to do. But I think that a lot of times we still operate in these systems that were not designed for us to succeed. And that's why a lot of Black women are not succeeding at the rate that we are one of the largest educated populations in this country. Facts. And we still operate as if we have no power. Correct. But in this system, we have more education. And in the US, education is power, right? And in this system, we get money and that is power. And we still operate as if we have nothing.
And I will tell you that no doubt beneath all these powerful white men, there is a Black woman on that totem pole. But more than that, I want to tell you something that probably one of the best things my parents did for me is growing up when I was about 17 or 18, every time I asked for something, they said, and we were Christians, we grew up Christian, my dad would pop me on the forehead like this and say, Deana, you train, you know, they train up a child as they should go. Make your own decision. I mean, literally, he would pop me on my forehead and say, you train, make your own decision. And I got to choose whether I was going to go out, whether I was going to stay in and study, who I was going to go out with. And so that prepared me for points where they were not there and where I had to make decisions in life and in business. And, you know, we need to be doing that to our young women and to our children at younger ages where we're still there to monitor what they're doing just in case they get into, you know, a situation. But we've got to have that power of choice to what you're speaking of.
I think for that, I think there needs to be support systems around that, you know, parent support systems around that, because I dated someone who was mad at their parents for doing that because they felt like they didn't give them any guidance. And so, you know, where the parent was like, oh, okay, you got all A's. I don't care what you do. Go do what you want. But in actuality, she wanted her parents to say something to her, to monitor her, and to not be doing their thing, and to give some attention. And so to this day, you know, I mean, even today, you know, almost 40 or 40 something or whatever, still is holding on to that. You know, my parents I had to do this by myself. I had to learn this by myself. You know, I got good grades. And so it's like, I almost wanted to get bad grades so they could pay attention to me.
Yeah.
So I think it's
that goes
about
beyond
perspective.
choice.
Yeah, I think that's a little
beyond
different.
choice.
I'm
I think
talking
it's perspective, though.
17,
gives
18
perspective.
years old, and I'm literally about to walk out my house.
Yeah.
So I need to make these decisions now.
Yeah.
When you're growing up, that's a little different.
Near
But
adulthood.
good point.
I mean, but I think it all circles back to, the concept of who holds the power, right? And I hear the different aspects. There's the parents, right? That power parent-child dynamic, supervisor, support dynamic, the relationship dynamic. It almost seems like the relationship dynamic
too.
Right, but it seems like the relationship dynamic is the one that can be the most complicated with the new with today's Black women. Just because think about it, because there's so many factors defining what the role should be for Black women in their relationships. Think about how it is at work in that hierarchy and who is still the dominant presence. Like the education system, even though we're the most educated, there's still a lot of impact. So now when you get into, think about it, if you're in a Black individual relationship, and then one of you is more successful than the other, then how are you managing who has the power?
Yeah.
And that's why I said it's important for me in my relationships to have that balance, to know when. But even then, you can still find the moments where who gets the final say.
Yeah.
If we don't agree, who gets the final decision?
Yeah.
And that's how you know who really has the power.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Whoever
sometimes
gets to
it
make
changes,
that.
right? Like if you're in a healthy,
Mm-hmm.
dynamic, it changes based off of who has the skill set, like you mentioned earlier, or who has, the connection to spirit or whatever, like whatever they find to be most important, because sometimes it can't just be on us, because sometimes our egos get in the way of things as well.
Deana put her glass down. Lord.
She done put her glass down. So let's get into some of these final takeaways. So we're recognizing, what are your final takeaways? Yeah, that's the therapist in me.
Not
so
the warm rag.
What did you say? Not the warm rag.
I'll leave it in October.
Let's go ahead. Let's succinctly say, what are our final takeaways for power? And listen, the audience may say, nah, grown-ass women, y'all ain't covered this enough, right? Go ahead and hit us up and tell us you need more, right? Like, because maybe we need more understanding and processing and conversation around power and power dynamics, because maybe it looks different in certain systems and structures than it does in other. Because one of the things we didn't touch on is the power of self, right? Because we're talking about it in terms of power of relationship with others. But go ahead, Jay, what were you going to say?
So I'd say, a small takeaway is that power is in the eye of the beholder, right? So power is whatever it means to you. So we're not all on the same levels of, power. I might not want to do what you want to do. I see you being a boss, but I think I'm a boss too in my own way.
Yeah.
And I do whatever I have the capacity to do.
Yeah.
And I also think that power is knowledge-based. So the more knowledge you have, your definition of power may evolve. So,
which then makes me think about one of our other podcasts that we have for this season around intuition, right? Because knowledge coming from study and facts and research, not knowledge coming from experiences, or knowledge coming from intuition, which is a knowledge base that's generally ancestral and spirit based, right? Like that cannot be seen or fully understood. But knowledge indeed.
Similar to Jay, I believe in like the ebb and flow of power. As a coach, being able to access your power when it is time to access your power, and knowing when to empower others and how to work on a specific thing. It's the wine, y'all. My glass is empty.
Last call.
So I'm gonna stop right here.
I like that. So for me, power is in choice. Where I get to choose to be submissive and supportive, or I choose to lead. And that's where the power is, because I find peace in both.
Yeah, Yes, that's okay.
You know, yeah.
Should we pass the baton?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Pass the
Okay,
baton
we're
on that
passing the
one.
baton.
I just want to say this topic is fascinating, and this topic is absolutely one close to my heart. And I think these ladies have said very powerful nuggets.
What about me? Why you ain't put your hand toward me?
Well, because you haven't said your final thought.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about their final thought.
Okay.
But what I would
nugget.
like to put out there as a final thought in consideration is a quote from a book that we read by Joan Morgan, When Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost. Like, do you want to be right or do you want to win?
Yes.
Ooh, come
And
on.
I think as Black women, we often equate power with anger and fighting. And I want to give a shout out to quiet power. I want to give a shout out to that power that is not about fighting and anger and winning, but it is about winning. That's what I say. It's not that power about you need to see me as right. See me as right or wrong. I want to win.
Come on, quiet stream over there. I hear you.
That's our quiet storm,
For our
right?
introverts out there.
Exactly. For all the introverts out there, you still have your power. It is just a matter of wielding that power quietly because you want to win. You can be right or wrong. All right, believe what you want to believe, but I'm going to win.
Don't pass the baton to me. That was a mic drop.
That was a mic
What I'm
drop.
supposed to do? Pick up the mic and say something?
Walk away,
All
Fred.
right.
Do you want to win?
As women, it's November.
If you want to win, pick up the mic.
I don't want to pick up the mic.
What Brahma
That's
says
a
right there.
choice. Right.
Right.
It is a choice. It is a choice.
And that is the power of your
I'm
choice.
sitting here
That is
looking
a passion.
dumbfounded like I'm supposed to say something next.
Pick up the pieces.
I think Ayana
what
just
she
gave
said.
us the takeaway for November as well as the tip of the month.
That
and all
is
of
the
those
tip
kind
of
of
the
things.
month. Do you want to
And
be right or do you want to win?
I love
And
it.
I'm going to submit and be quiet. Thank you.
And that's why I said that's the sage over there.
That
right
Say
there.
that. Sage.
So there we go. November, grown ass women. Super excited again that we are dropping every single month at this point,
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
super excited about the work that we get to do in terms of conversations and, making sure that folks don't necessarily, that we get to drop knowledge. But the bigger point of our friend group is that we get to converse and leave information on the table. And we say, pick it up, do what you want to do, how you want to do it. Nobody is given like a specific tip in terms of this is what you must do every single moment. Instead, we say, let's talk about some shit. Let's deconstruct this. And then you take away that piece and you build what you want to build out of that. And I love that about us, that as silly as we are and crazy as we are and sexually inappropriate or appropriate. As we are also extremely connected and knowledgeable and deep and in tuned and all the things. We are the yin and the yang. We together
Come on, soundbite.
make it work, right? Come
And
on,
to our
soundbite.
audience, we want to hear from you. If you
Yes.
have something that you want to
What
talk
do you want
about,
us to talk about?
yes,
Yeah.
hit us up. Let us know what you want to talk about. What are some of your issues in your friend groups or just
Yes.
worldly issues that you're, topics that are on your mind. Hit us up
Yes.
and let us know what you want to talk about, what you want to hear about.
grown
We
women.
will certainly deconstruct it.
With some juice.
And with that, if you'd like to
bubbly.
be a sponsor for Grown Ass Women, if you like us to, because we experience life, and if you like to be able to make sure that we are putting your name and your business out there, let us know that too, because that's important to us as we build Black business and we support Black business.
Yeah.
And even in the space that we get to sit in today and the
Black
people who get to
business.
produce us today and the people who are always in our corner, we recognize the power of community. And so if you'd like to be part of that community, specifically in the role of a sponsor, definitely hit us up through Onyx Therapy Group and through Grown Ass Women. And if you are hitting us up on one platform, make sure you follow us up on the different platforms. We are on YouTube. We have Instagram. We have our podcasts that are on all podcasting platforms as well. And then we have our individual and collective social media sites as well. So thank you to my best friends for always loving on
I'm empty.
us. Empty. I don't even want to bend over now.
But you know what? I'm full.
Fingers. You're full.
Thank you
You're
guys.
full.
Yes.
And again,
Yes.
for this November, shout out to our veterans. And while we understand the history of Thanksgiving in this country, let us also give thanks in a more general and universal way to the fact that we get to have purpose and we get to have life and we get to be here and celebrate with others. So maybe you don't agree with Thanksgiving in that traditional form, and we understand and support that. But let us always give thanks and gratitude to purpose, to community, to ourselves, to our gods that we love and worship.
Yes, amen.
Ashe.
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 Yes.
All right now.
Amen.
All right. Thank you.